everyone hated it. Not everyone, but the most people hated that skill. Is just like, I see all these people playing this thing that looks so unfun to play just because it's good, and I'm just like, I feel bad for them. We loved it. It was such a cool thing. They'll see, okay, this skill plus this ascendancy, something about that just works. Look up there. Look up there.
Hello, welcome back to Tell Us About. Today we have with us Captain Lance. Now, Captain Lance makes builds, and he's also a parent. Now, Captain Lance, which one of the toys behind you is your favorite toy?
Well, I gotta be honest, I don't really like toys that make a lot of noise. Now, Lance loves, and Charlotte loves toys that make noise. I don't like them particularly because they like to play with them a lot, and after a while of hearing like the same repeated sound, like for example, let me just show you one. This truck, Lance loves, right? But you hear this once, it's fine. You hear this 100 times in a row in the span of an hour, it starts to tick away at your sanity, right? But I don't have the heart to turn off the sound on him because he does love like hearing the sound and stuff. So it's like, it's fine. But the toys I like more are typically stuff that Lance and Charlotte they'll interact with, but it doesn't make a bunch of noise. Like Lance will he'll get on this and he'll like push it around and he'll be all happy about it. And I think that's really cute and really fun. And it doesn't make a repeating noise that just mentally like ticks away at me. Right?
It chips away little by little.
Yeah, exactly.
At one point I worked in Kittyland at Indiana Beach, which maybe you've heard of. You know, there's more than corn than Indiana Beach.
I have been to Indiana Beach maybe a couple times, but I don't really remember it too much. It was more when I was younger.
Yeah. So that's I grew up in that town, so a lot of times I worked there over the summers and stuff. So yeah, I worked in Kittyland, and people love the boats and the ding 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 and the bell, the whole shift. Oh my gosh! So
it'd wear away at you, wouldn't it?
yeah. No, I just went with it. I tried to annoy other people. I was like, yeah, ring it louder, whatever, and piss the parents off.
You were good at your job then.
I was good at my job, but I pissed the parents off.
Oh, because they were like, no, not more.
Yeah. Okay, don't be the thing. I'm like, no, you can ring it. And then they like look at me, and then they look at their parents, and they go to town and ring them up.
Honestly, I think for the sake of the kids enjoying it, which is probably like the reason they're even there, is for the kids to have fun, right? I think it's doing a good job, to be honest.
Yeah, for that part.
The parents are probably not. They're like, oh, we're not going here again.
Exactly. Not when that guy's there. Yeah. So I did that. All right, but I threw a curveball there at the start. I had to get you back for your 40C bait joke there, and just open with that. So
I wasn't trying to be too mean to anyone. I was just trying to have fun.
No, I thought it was fun. I thought, yeah.
I like looking at what other people are doing for League Start, right? And so most of that video is just making jokes about the thumbnails people make and just trends I know for people. Like, for example, I was making a joke about Kobe Black Mamba playing Berserker because I know whenever I tune into his stream, he's always playing Berserker builds. Like, he has
he loves Berserker.
Or stackers maybe, but like most builds I see him play are always Berserker. So if there's something I know about of a certain content creator, I try to just make a joke or light of that just because it's something they're known for type of thing.
Yeah, I think we need more joking, and we take the game a little bit too serious as game. League Start! If I don't get to maps in 6 hours, I'm making sure I'm gonna call up your employer, I'm gonna report you, and like they want to ruin people's lives over build guides and stuff. It's like, what?
All that, just everything.
Yeah.
That's one thing, like, I don't know, like, meta builds are always so, like, if you're not playing the best build, you're playing a mistake or whatever, and that's part of the reason, like, I try to not play meta builds, is because the beauty of PoE is always playing, for me, it's playing in something that is interesting or weird or whatever, and even if it's not the best build, I'm okay with just playing something that I think is fun or I like, right?
Yeah, a lot of it is the F word, the fun word, right? But people forget that, they get really competitive. Anything that has a ladder or something, especially with an economy that changes, and it's really easy to sell gear early on. It's a big deal. A lot of people don't play the game like that.
PoE has PvP, but it's not the duels. It's all about the fat stack of exalts. How big is the number? That's the
Yeah.
real PvP in PoE.
Fixing the economy, the real ladder.
Yeah, it's that. Then it's the POB DPS number. You know.
Yeah, all that good stuff.
Yeah, people get into it.
Mm-hmm. So, how did you get into gaming and then Path of Exile?
So for me, gaming started out probably when I was, I don't know, around 8 or 9 or something. I want to say one of my first games was a game called Heroes of Might and Magic. You might have heard of it, might not have,
Yep.
but it's a turn-based strategy game, and I always liked the fantasy elements of like dragons and archangels and behemoths and all these sorts of creatures and stuff. So I always liked that sort of like element and stuff. And I started out with a turn-based game. I think it was a good starter for being a kid and not necessarily knowing how to interact with a keyboard and mouse and stuff. And it kind of got me like, I guess, what's the word? Kind of used to the mechanics of using a mouse and a keyboard. And the turn-based was great. Game was like great for that because I could learn like the interactions. And then eventually I would move on to play some other games like Morrowind, like Age of Empires, stuff like that, where there was actually a time element to it where you need to, in real time, you need to do something and interact with it. And those are probably some of my favorite games growing up. And then eventually, for a stint, I want to say about 7th grade, I got an Xbox and I became a console only main. And from there is basically FPS, Call of Duty. I'd get on after school, I'd come home and I'd talk smack to all my buddies. And you get in Modern Warfare 2 and you get in search and destroy lobbies and people would die, and in the death screen you can talk to the opponent's team or whatever and talk all the smack or
It was a
whatever.
toxic time, wasn't it?
Oh, it was super toxic. And to me personally, I grew up in like a small kind of very sheltered school. I went to a private Christian school, and I had basically no grasp for what the world was like compared to this sheltered environment. Then you go into MW2 lobbies, and everybody's cussing each other out and everything. And I'm definitely glad for it because I think I think being extremely sheltered like that ends up making for people that don't know how to adjust to adult life super well to some extent. I could be wrong about this, but I see from what I've seen in terms of other people I went to school with where they were so sheltered all the way through all the way up until like later in their adult life after they got out of like a Christian college or something,
Mhm.
and then they finally got out of that bubble, and some of them like went to some crazy weird direction or something just because they couldn't, I don't know, adjust to adult life and that stuff. So I personally am glad I got to play MW2 for getting, a taste of not just this sheltered environment type of thing. And then it was, of course, just fun, hanging out with my friends after school. Because even though I couldn't go over to their house because they lived miles away or whatever, I could chat with them, keep up with friends, stuff like that. But eventually, after high school, I went to college, and that is when I think I started getting into PC gaming again. And my brother is the one who actually introduced me. He's like, hey, check out this cool game, Path of Exile. And that's when he basically convinced me and my two older siblings to all like commit to a game night where we would get on Discord basically and we'd all chat and we'd play through the campaign together. And we were all extreme noobs. We had no idea what we were doing. Our builds were hot garbage. We were struggling as a 4-person team to get through the acts, right?
That's the
And
best way to go.
but it was still fun. The thing is,
Yeah.
it's like me and my siblings all kind of, we moved out, we got married, we went different places, and we didn't really get, when growing up, we saw each other every day, and it was a way for us to hang out, spend time together, and that was great. And personally, I definitely got way more hooked to PoE than my siblings did because I started playing it on my own, 24 freaking 7. College finals are coming up, and I am playing up until I have to leave to make it to the exam on time, not studying at all. And
Uh-oh.
it was basically winging it through multiple choice tests or whatever math questions. And it probably didn't help my GPA, but I did just enough to know just enough to pass, right? If as long from what I found out, or at least for me, it was the case where if you did better than the average, you passed, is what I found to be the case for a lot of my college classes, which personally I think is a little stupid. I think if you have an entire class where 70% is failing, maybe they just deserve to fail, right? Maybe they didn't learn. Maybe they were me, and we're just trying to do enough to be better than the other 69% or whatever it is, right?
C's
But
and D's get degrees. Is that
it
is that your
pretty much,
motto?
basically, it's there was I don't know what the threshold was exactly, but from what I could tell is there was some sort of program or procedure set up in place by the heads of various departments where they would say to their professors or whatever, and they'd say, you have to pass this percentage of your class, right? And so it didn't matter if you had a 50%, if the amount of people that did worse than that was the amount to push you above the one that's going to get boosted to passing the class. Because they would do stuff like curve it. Because I don't know if it was just an issue where the professors weren't particularly good and they wouldn't teach the class material well, or people were lazy. I think a lot of part was people were lazy. I mean, I don't know. It's hard to tell. I was in an engineering field and people would say, "Oh, this stuff's really hard," but at the same time, I know a lot of people were like me and they weren't really trying, but they were trying just enough to pass, right? So,
Yeah.
anyways, moral stories, I got hardcore addicted to games like PoE in college. I just haven't really stopped, but I definitely started playing a lot less since I got married and have had some kids now. The time frame to be able to play is way less.
Yeah. When I was in college, it was similar because I was in computer science, and before that, I was in engineering before I switched. It was basically the same thing.
Did you have a
Like,
similar experience?
yeah, everything was. I never knew it wasn't just that. It was like projects were curved, tests were curved. You didn't know what the curve was, so I never knew if I was failing a class or like acing a class until
So
the
everybody's
end.
turned
Until
it
I
right.
saw the report card, I'm like, oh, okay. So, but yeah, it was crazy. I'll I had this one math class, and the first exam I got a 40% on it. Now I attended every class, I did every homework assignment, and the guy made the test like impossible.
The test was completely
It,
unrelated to
it
like what he was teaching you.
he get no. It was a time constraint thing. We had 60 minutes to do the test, and it was a 2-hour test.
Oh, okay, that makes some
He was a
sense.
fresh professor, and so that was the first test that he gave, and he learned some valuable lessons from it.
He learned he did
He
not
Yeah. So
he did not
basically,
contemplate how
I got an
test
A
would be.
minus on a 40% on an exam.
Yeah.
So of course, what do? I'm like, I ain't going to the class then because I don't think it makes a difference if I study. So I
Yeah.
go in to take the next exam and I just cram for it, and then I get a 60 on that one. Now, because he was a new professor, he decided, you know what? Let's go the other direction with the next one. So there's no curve on the next one. So
What
now I'm in some deep
was
crap.
the test any easier or was it the
Yes, it
same?
was really easy, but I just to prepare like I studied because I knew I probably could get like a 35, and if it was the same difficulty of the first one, I would get like a B on it. But it turned out it was easy. I just didn't do some of the stuff. So the average was actually like 75,
Wow.
which meant it wasn't getting curved. Now, luckily, I studied my butt off for the final, and I ended up getting, I think, a C plus in the class. But I had to get like a really high
Really
mark
cram.
on the exam on the final, or I was
Yeah,
screwed.
I could see that. A newer professor, the consistency's probably not going to be there. I know, at least from my experience, is you could look all the professors up on like Rate My Professor, I think it was, or there's those different sites where you can. A lot of times people will say, "Oh, I took the class, he requires homework," or "I took the class, he requires a book," or "He requires the book, but you don't need it." There's like stuff you can find out like that. And I learned very quick from like freshman going into sophomore year is I want to reach because there'd be multiple professors teaching like calculus, for example, and there'd be five to choose from, and you could figure out of those five which one's a good professor or which one's got some consistent like reputation by like looking them up and stuff. And I pretty quickly adapted it. I'm like, I'm gonna always choose the professors that have some level of consistency, so that way going in I know the rules by which we're playing this game, type of
Yeah,
thing.
but
Game the
that
system.
that was my most egregious, like insane curve, right? Where like a 40 was an A. But then I had a lot of classes where like 60, 65 was probably an A, which is pretty awful, but it's pretty consistently hard. A lot of
Yeah,
the
I would say
professors,
that was consistent with my experience too. A lot of the one of the most egregiously curved classes. I think it was one of the circuits classes I took where basically there was a pretty large disconnect into what the professor was teaching and then the questions he gave were like so much next level that you could prep for the stuff he was teaching over here, but then when you got these questions over here, you're like, this is not related. The jump was so far that it was
Yeah.
basically guaranteed that vast majority of people were going to bomb it, and then there'd be large curves to compensate for the fact that he was testing on stuff he wasn't exactly teaching.
Did you take any analysis of algorithms type classes?
I have not.
Okay, that was the most terrifying ones because basically, even the homework was near impossible or really hard to complete. Even like if you did it in a
That like
group,
analysis of algorithms, would that be like
solving
man,
a
it's been a
problem
long,
faster and saying how long
yeah,
it took
figuring
and
out
stuff.
how efficiently like the code is, the type of stuff like that.
Yeah, and figuring it out. Yeah, and so there's certain algorithms that exist that people spent their entire career on this
Yeah.
one algorithm, and so you have to memorize how that worked. Now they're going to ask you a problem where you have to apply this algorithm that someone spent their whole career on, and you either will understand and it will be obvious to you, or you don't, and you're on the clock, right? And the exam is 4 questions. It's
Sheer
4 questions. Exactly. It's 4 questions of if you understand all those algorithms so well that he asks you some arbitrary question and you know how to do the solution when working in.
Yeah, I saw that being a case a lot of times. There'd be like, I don't know, 20 examples of 20 different things, and you'd be like, well, I understand 17 of these, and 3 of these I don't understand. And then they ask you a question about 4 of them. Guess what? 3 ones you don't
Yeah,
understand are
that
on
happened
there.
a lot of times too.
And then
Yeah,
you're just like sweating
yeah,
bullets the entire time you're taking the test
yeah,
because you're like, I am so screwed.
yeah. I had this one college professor, and whenever he'd travel, he was an engineering. I think he's like or aero engineer
Yeah.
professor. And so whenever he'd go on planes with other professors, he'd screw with them and go, "My C students built this plane, designed this plane." Everyone would look at him and get really nervous on the plane.
Well, how old is he? His key students might have been involved eventually, like.
Well, it wasn't exactly far fetched, but that's like everyone thinks like the master surgeon is performing surgery on you. Was he? What was his GPA? You know?
The thing is though, like, I don't think I don't think grades are everything. I see it all the time where I see people who weren't necessarily good at taking tests or whatever, but they get into the field, they kind of get into the workflow, and then they learn it well. I feel like I've seen multiple examples of people where I didn't think they were necessarily the sharpest, knife in the drawer, and then I see later on, they got this job, and then they've been adapting to it well. It seems like they've actually done decently for themselves, like really gone up in terms of maybe they got more serious about their life and less partying, more like, okay, I want to actually have a job that pays my bills type of thing.
Yeah, well, I mean, college, a lot of it has nothing to do with the actual field you're in. It's that you can learn, that you can commit to something, and you come out a well rounded person,
Yeah.
basically. And if you learn how to learn, then you could learn anything, especially in the tech stuff. Like, it's changed so much since I've graduated. So I
No matter what you
graduated like 12
adapt.
years ago now, and
Yeah.
holy crap, like some of the languages didn't exist when I was in there, right? The concepts are the same though, but
Yeah, it's funny how many random times I've heard new different languages. I'm like, what the hell is that? I
yeah,
just
you got
graduated like a couple of years ago. I'm like, I never heard of that language.
yeah, and especially for tech, people expect you to just know everything. Okay, here's a funny thing that my grandma likes to do to me. Okay, she hands me her new iPhone 4000 or whatever number we're on now, right?
Yeah.
And she's just like blah 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 blah, some very specific problem, and I don't even own any products whatsoever, and I'm like, well, what's the problem? And then she's like, well,
You
shouldn't you
are
know? And I'm
you're a
like,
computer
no, I don't
scientist,
do
don't
that
you
thing.
know?
Yeah, she's going, oh, well, I thought you went to college.
This is like
I'm like, grandma, what the heck?
she's doing you dirty, but it's like
Exactly.
that's just a separation. I feel like because you have like, okay, you have people that understand computers to some degree, like computer engineer, computer scientist, yada yada yada. There's so many different things under that one umbrella, and all the people who aren't in that umbrella here is computer guy.
Yeah,
That's all they
exactly.
hear, right? He knows how to solve the computer problem.
Yep.
I am happy, no matter what it is, no matter what field it is. It's like that's not how this works.
Yeah, or if you tell someone about your career and you're like, "Oh, I know blah 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 it does IT." Okay, well, what does he do? He does this thing. It's like nothing to do. Like it's so vast, right? You could be just a tester where you make test cases for it. You could be just a person who does DevOps work. You could be a tech lead who advises other people, or someone who designs systems. Do you
It's such
design hardware
vast,
systems or
a
software
vast
systems?
space of things.
Yeah, and it's so much time. I mean, and that's probably a good segue into what we do, which is make content, which is the same thing, right? Because you're kind of you have to worry about your video settings and your audio settings and learn that stuff, and then editing techniques, and then all these configurations, and how to run a stream, and then how do you interact with chat, and then so much of it has nothing to do with playing the game. And you get people that just don't understand, like, oh,
I
well,
have
why isn't this out?
skills now? What the hell? 1 second.
We've been trying to schedule this interview for days now. He's a super, super busy guy. So I know some of you do not touch grass, but for those who do, definitely appreciate Captain Lance. Path of Exile and putting out content takes so much of his time.
I was gonna say hi really quick before I take her to my mom, but she just woke up.
Hi,
Say hi, Charlotte.
Charlotte.
Look up there. Look up there. All right, I'm gonna take her to my wife. I'll be right back.
A few moments later.
So what we were talking about is all the different little things you have to learn as a content creator, and then people expect that you're playing the game as much as they are, when really they like no life the game, and then you have to like stop and make videos on it, or at least like, you know, I do, and then answer and manage a community, and then do this, and then do that, all these other things. So I'm probably not playing the game as much as they are.
Yeah, that's one of the funny things I've noticed is people always are like, "Oh, streamers are the no-lifers who are playing nonstop," which I mean, some of them maybe are if they don't like post YouTube videos or they don't do other stuff, but for a large part of it, I spend more time editing videos, answering comments on YouTube, responding to message I get, like DMs I get, stuff like that, and it's actually a significant less amount of time I spend in PoE than what actual no lifers do. I still do a decent amount, right? But for the most part, I end up having a lot of other stuff I'm doing, and I think that's kind of a I don't know if it's a misconception, or maybe some people are aware that YouTubers or streamers do a lot of other stuff as well besides just playing PoE, for example.
Yeah, yeah. So what made you want to actually get into content creation?
Oh, it started off with I was just like, I think I made something cool. I'm going to share it with people and say, hey, look what I did in PoE. Because I just thought, you know, PoE always, I think the fun things are always like seeing different stuff people do. And so I wanted to contribute to, oh, look at this cool thing I did, right? And when I initially started, this was granted a lot earlier in my PoE career. I was much, much worse at the game. And I'm probably still bad at the game in a lot of areas. And every time I learn something new and I make a better build or whatever. And I think it began as something where I just kind of wanted to share, oh, I think this is a cool idea. Maybe it's not that cool of an idea. And as you get better at the game, you come up with cooler ideas and stuff to share. And then a part of me, a small part of me that maybe is a little bit disconnected from reality, thinks maybe someday if I just keep part-timing this and I just keep trying to grow whatever small following I have, I get to the point where it pays enough to be a reliable, sustainable income for my family. The reality is, there's no way it pays enough to fund basically having multiple children, being married, stuff like that. And the amount of time commitment for how much you get paid it's very, very bad in terms of you play, say, one build for, I don't know, a couple days worth of in-game time, right? And then you spend 5, 10+ hours making videos on it, and over the course of that build, you make, I don't know, a couple $100. But say you put 50 hours into it, you're making $5 an hour. It's horrible income, right? It's not good at all. And of course, eventually, once you start getting big enough, you get better like money per hour in terms of getting subscribers on Twitch or getting sponsorship, stuff like that. It can become a real job, but you have to get a very large, in my opinion, to get to the point where you're going to be able to have a sustainable income for a family. So right now, it's basically small part of me is just like, if I keep doing this full time, maybe it can get to the point where it's good enough that I can reliably say, yeah, this is my job. It pays for my family's needs, yada yada yada. But for right now, it's just I'll do the current timeline I'm on is going to be I'm going to do hardcore streaming or try to do YouTube content maybe the first 2 weeks and then go back to working full time during the weekdays, and then during the weeknights when the babies are finally asleep, I'll try to do some PoE, try to make some builds, or try to still squeeze in like a few builds a week. So, just try to do some stuff because I still do enjoy playing the game, but it's like, it's so, it is pretty tiring and stuff. And it's like hard to have the time for all of it type of thing, but it's just more or less, I just enjoy playing PoE. I enjoy sharing the builds, and then a small part of me is hopeful that maybe it could be a career, but realistically, I don't really see that as a possibility. I don't think I'll be able to be successful enough to get to the point where I make the money where it says, okay, this will pay for my kids' needs.
What are some of the most surprising things that you had to learn to make content?
Oh, one is some level of social skills. If you're gonna stream on Twitch, at least, I feel like it's so important to be able to be interesting, be entertaining, be vibrant, be able to respond to people. I'm not a particularly naturally social person, and this was a hard thing for me to get used to, is actually being social while streaming, being able to talk to people. And for me, it's somewhat exhausting, it's tiring, but that was something I needed to learn that I wasn't quite expecting. I thought, oh, you PoE, you just play a game and have fun, because it seems like whenever you watch streamers, they're just playing and having fun. But there's really a lot of effort that goes into, or at least for me, I feel like I have a lot of effort that goes into, okay, I'm going to be talking to people, responding to people, trying to be, I don't know, a good person, not tilting out at somebody who's saying something mean to me or whatever, or saying something because they don't understand and being like, well, I got asked that 500 times already, now I'm going to tilt out at you, stuff like that's hard to do.
Yeah, that's one of the biggest things. Okay, question number 500. Someone in chat want to take this one. Anybody at all who isn't me?
It's like, I mean, the thing is, it's not their fault. The person who's asking, it's their first time. They weren't at the stream when the 499 people before them asked that same question, right? And stuff like that was something I wasn't expecting. Learning some level of editing, I guess I should have expected if I wanted to make YouTube videos. That stuff has been a bit of a learning curve, and there's been learning curves with like setting up Streamlabs, setting up OBS, and I still haven't really done a good job with that. I still need to put more effort into learning it better. And then a large aspect is learning what content is worth making, which is a hard question for me to answer, but I've found out that there is content people just do not care about, type of thing, where I'm like, okay, I'm not going to make a video about that sort of subject anymore. Maybe I'm just not a good person for that type of video. Like, I initially tried to do some level of like PoE educational content, and maybe this is a fact of I'm not good at that sort of content to some degree, and people didn't like my videos, or just people don't care about that content, right? And one of those answers, whatever the answer is, didn't really matter. Point is, I discovered when I make that content, it's not well received, and it took a lot of effort to do. I'm not going to do it again, because I put in tons of hours to get nothing out of it, right? Stuff like that has been pretty big in terms of the learning curve for me.
Yep. I definitely agree there. I always try to pick like one or two things that I'm going to work on for the cycle. For me, one of the biggest disappointing things is just kind of the interest spike of Path of Exile, that it like falls off a cliff a month and a half in.
Yeah, everybody goes to the other game, and once they go to the other game, they don't care about watching PoE content.
And people only want to watch PoE people play PoE. And if you go to another content, a lot of people don't want to watch anything else. They're like, I only care about PoE. That's what I do. So there's like
It-
those two.
It is a weirdly exclusive. I don't know, mob mentality. I don't know. How to
Yeah,
say.
yeah, for sure. So that, and then the other frustrating thing has been like nerfs and stuff ruining my videos, which I hid a lot of my videos that I've made just because I don't want YouTube to serve up videos that are useless to my viewer or potential
Oh,
viewer.
if you have something where like the next league it's dead, and you had like a good build, and it's like, oh, I can't recommend that guide anymore. I have to take that down or whatever.
Yeah, well, I mean, I took a lot of things down because they just don't work anymore. Or I can't, in good conscience, recommend it, or you're not gonna be able to try it. So, in Scourge League, I did a armor aura stacker that used the boots that they basically
Yeah,
yeeted.
they brutalized.
Yeah, and it only works like with that or that setup that I had,
Yeah,
and it was like 140K view video already, one of my best performing video, and I still hit it because I'm like, if anyone tries this in the
it's
next
gonna go
league,
badly.
well,
I've
you
gone
can't
with
do it.
the approach of I'm trying to make sure I put the league the videos from. So like if I make a video in 3.17, I'll try to say Inquisitor Spark 317. So that way if they watch the video, they'll know, okay, this was from 317. It might be different now. And then if I get comments that say, the people will ask me, hey, does this still work? I'll just try to be like, yeah, that still works, or no, that's bricked now. Like I've had questions about, I did an instacker a few leagues back, and then more recently they destroyed Hydrosphere, right? And my build for that character was half the damage was Hydrosphere, right? So I have to be like, no, that's completely bricked. Do not play this build. But I still end up leaving the video up just for myself somewhat to look back at past builds I made, and hopefully I think most people will like read the title, right, and they'll be like, okay, this is a build from a past league. There's a good chance it doesn't work currently, but maybe there's new players that don't
Yeah,
realize how
that
much the
this
game gets
this
nerfed and
is
buffed.
this is my problem because I'm catering more to newer people's with my budget stuff, and so it's very practical that they don't understand the game, and they came into me on a budget thing, and then they're going to have a really bad time if they get on it. But since I've been putting so much more effort into my editing now, I don't think I'm gonna hide any more videos at this point. But
Yeah, you don't want to be like, okay, I'm closing down that video after you put so much time into it.
yeah, because a lot of the videos now are taking 12 plus hours for me to make, the ones that I'm making. And
Yeah.
that's quite like what I'm saying is after I played it and showcased it, to like 12 hours to edit and script and get just right some of them that I'm trying this
Yeah,
year.
that'd be a hard pill to swallow through, and that's kind of where, I mean, I don't, a lot of my videos I don't put that much time into, but I still don't really want to just scrap it, because even in builds that, and this could be just me as like I'm addicted to theory crafting and stuff. Even builds that necessarily got completely bricked, and I'll do this sometimes when I'm trying to like figure out certain mechanics. I'll look at videos for builds that are bricked, but maybe not every single piece of the build got bricked from nerfs or something. Maybe there's some unique, I guess, setups people do or something, that there's stuff in the past that worked that people forgot about and would work really well with this new item that came in the league. And I don't know. There's some level of like looking back at history of various PoE builds, you can find out and do some cool things just because of the interactions people discovered or figured out.
Yeah, and that's what I do, but I don't think that's how most of the people, maybe the really invested people do that want to make their own builds. But I don't think there's that many content creators that are really even making their own builds.
Yeah, maybe to some extent. I mean, I think to a large part, I think most, I think content creators are making their own builds a large extent, but they're waiting for other people to make the build and show the skills good in a large extent. I don't think they necessarily copy everybody else's builds, but like, for example, I've seen like 5 Spark Inquisitor builds this coming league. And last league, that wasn't a build. And I made it as a league starter, and I thought this is a unique, cool thing. And I started out with it being Crackling Lance, and I very quickly transitioned to Spark because how much better Spark felt. And now I'm seeing multiple people making Spark Inquisitors. I don't think they're copying me. I think I proved it works as a concept, and they're like, okay, this skill is good enough to work. Let me modify it for maybe my hardcore playstyle, or maybe they'll even make it better. They'll be smarter about how they build it. They'll make a better build. But I think a lot of people will they'll see, okay, this skill plus this ascendancy, something about that just works. Let me see if I can make it my own way, type of thing. And I
Yeah.
think a lot of creators do that just because if you try to make a build with a bad skill, you're just gonna have a bad time. So, and maybe people have been burnt enough times that they're like, screw it, I'm just gonna make sure I use a skill that's has some level of, okay, this has been proven to be good, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but I think most people who uh, watch the game and enjoyers of the game, I don't think they make their own builds most of the time. A lot of
That
times they're
that,
copying
that
the
could be a large.
POB. Yeah, they copy the POB 1-to-1 and ask me questions like, well, I can't find a ring that has that resist. It's like,
Don't copy it that one to one.
like actual copying 1-to-1. You know what I mean?
I
Type
mean
thing.
that I think people copying it that one to one are pretty rare in terms of not realizing, oh, I can get that res from maybe my boots or my belt or whatever, right?
Hmm.
For the most part, I could see a large portion of people just being like, okay, seismic trap has been proven. This does a lot of damage on little gear. It's good. I want to compete with the best, so I'm gonna play this because it's been shown to be maybe one of the best skills, right? And that's how you get like the meta is basically people who don't want to make their own builds and they just want to play something that's guaranteed good. And that could be for a lot of reasons. Maybe that's a part of the crowd of people who just want to show up and grind out 40 challenges and get their PoE fix in the first 2 weeks and then quit it, right? Maybe they're just like going for super efficiency. I don't really know, but I could see a lot of people do tend to start players of the game just want to play something good, and so they'll just copy a build, right? Maybe they make small adjustments, but I do think there are a large people that make their own unique builds. I think that's like still a good portion of people. I would assume I know I was one of the people, and I know a lot of times I look on PoE Ninja, and I find a lot of really weird, unique builds. I try to like look up at underused skills, and I was like, I'll just see what people are doing just for like a fun thing, like just to look at what other people are doing. I could see some pretty weird interactions where I think, oh, that's kind of cool, you know?
Yeah. Let us know in the comment section. Do you make your own builds? Do you take someone else's build and put a spin on it? What do you guys do?
Yeah, give us some data.
Yeah, we need some cold hard data here, okay, to settle this debate. So, what is your favorite build in the game that you've ever played?
By far and away, it's Righteous Fire. I've always been a big advocate for Righteous Fire. It was probably one of the first archetypes when I was like, I first got introduced to the game. I was playing with my siblings, and I was like, okay, I kind of want to do my own thing. And I started looking up different builds. And I saw Righteous Fire. I was like, oh, a skill that burns yourself and burns enemies around you. The thematically, the aesthetically, I thought that's a cool sounding play style. And then in comparison to, I got initially drawn in for the fantasy of it, being like, okay, Ring of Fire, this is cool, right? And then eventually it became, I like this skill because it's smooth, it's easy to play. I'm not pressing a lot of buttons usually. It's just I get to like shield charge through my maps, things die around me. It's low stress, the build's tanky, I don't die a lot, stuff like that are reasons why I really started to fall in love with that skill over other skills. Other skills obviously had their high points and different reasons for different aspects, but there's a reason that one's my favorite over the others. And then probably my favorite version of that build was when I discovered how to make Righteous Fire do chain explosions. Now I think that was one of my favorite things I've contributed to the game is I figured out, oh, you can take the explosion chest and you can convert it to fire. You can ignite with that, and then those ignites can spread and they'll explode more enemies. And I think that was one of my best contributions to Righteous Fire is making it. It took it from Righteous Fire. That skill is really bad at clearing to that skill is one of the best clear skills in the game. You run and everything blows up, right? So that's probably one of my favorite versions of my favorite build, right?
Mm-hmm. Now you shared some thoughts about another build that has a circle around it. We wanna tell us about that?
Okay, yeah. Earlier, I was throwing shade at Death's Oath, and the reason I throw shade at Death's Oath is because that used to be one of my other favorite skills I love to play. And basically, I think it's hot garbage. I think it's really, really bad in the current game. And I think a lot of people are super high on copium and saying, oh, it's fine. It clears maps really smoothly. But what you got to understand is what's clearing maps is occultist pops. It's not Death's Oath. It's occultist pops, and then you're killing monsters or bosses with caustic arrow or some other supporting skill. There is no feasible way to get Death's Oath to a reasonable single target without spending an absurd amount of currency, and even at absurd amounts of currency, it's like barely as good as other skills that are only just kind of okay on mediocre currency type of thing. Like, it's not even like it's absurd currency. It's not even competing with the good skills on low currency, right? Type of thing. And so my frustration is I think Death's Oath desperately deserves a buff. All the chaos skills got their damage multiplied by like 3 or something when Death's Oath got nothing. And to me, I think that's really stupid that this skill is so bad and people can't just agree it's bad and say, hey, GGG, buff this. And I think that's the reason it hasn't got buffed, because people are still saying, oh, it's fine, it's good, when really the reality is they're using occultist pops to clear, they're killing monsters with caustic arrow, it's not a Death's Oath build. If they took the chest off and they put on a different chest, the build would basically be the same type of thing. So that's my rant on Death's Oath.
I thought you were going to give us the initial thing that you gave, which is basically, Righteous Fire is my favorite build, and whoever plays Death Oath is the worst build ever, and don't let anyone tell you, whatever. That was how you started our conversation earlier. Okay,
I don't remember how I said that. Okay,
it was basically, that's what I was expecting.
I'm just,
You're really passionate about it earlier. I see that you've calmed down now.
About Death's Oath. It's been a betrayal.
What's your least favorite skill other than Death's Oath?
My least favorite skill, it's got to be Spectral Helix at this point. That skill...
I hate that skill too. Thank you.
The most flaccid, boring-looking skill, and they made it so freaking strong. I'm so sick of it being a top meta build solely because people are power hungry. That skill is just like... I see all these people playing this thing that looks so unfun to play just because it's good, and I'm just like, I feel bad for them a little bit, because deep down I'm thinking, okay, you're clearly having a bad experience playing the game just because of how addicted to power you are, and I feel bad you're stuck to that, type of thing a little bit. Maybe they're fine. Maybe they just enjoy the power and it's fine, but I do think to some extent there are people who know the skill is super unfun, but they're playing it regardless just because of how strong it is.
Yeah. One thing that I noticed when I tried to level it is that one property that's like, hey, it bounces off of walls. That's good, right? Until you realize if you're standing in a certain position or moving and it bounces off the walls, it's going to arc and then hit the wall and then go the other way, and it's just not going to hit the monster at all. It's not like Spark, you know what I mean? Where you have like all these projectiles and they're bouncing off walls and it's like a good thing.
To be fair with Spark has the issue if you get too close to an object, the projectile just straight up won't fire. So
yeah.
I mean, it doesn't happen too much, but you have to be in like a perfect position. But there are scenarios where you'll get too close to this tiny little rock you can't see, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, I'm not even shooting sparks. What happened? Like,
yeah, that's definitely annoying.
Does bug out.
I wish it didn't bug out with that, but I've been in like Cell's map, which I don't know why that's in the game, or any tight corridor.
Map, man. Just never complete it. I guess now you can complete it and you can do the thing where it's like only drop your favorite maps and you never drop it again, right?
Yeah. They should put some crazy div card on that map and force people that want to farm it to play the horrendous.
Yeah, come to find out, Apothecary, the new Mageblood card, that's where it drops.
Yeah,
like,
that'd be pretty funny.
People will run the map. Know they will. And they will hate their experience.
And it doesn't drop off. It drops off of any monster except for the boss. That'd be really funny.
I honestly don't think it would be in GGG's best interest to put a card like that in a really bad map, because I think it really would hurt player retention. It would make people kind of hate the game, because they would know the card is there. And they would say, I'm going to farm that card. And then they would end up hating it just because they're playing cells, right? They're playing a terrible map layout, but they want to farm their own Mageblood, or they have some lofty goal to do it, and then like it drives them to insanity or whatever it is.
Yeah. I don't
So
think they'll do that either, but
I
sometimes
don't
they
think they'll
do.
put it in a layout that bad.
Yeah, sometimes they do some stuff that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. So I never know, but I'm pretty sure. I can say pretty confident that Cells is not on their radar to add the Mage File. Oh, we'll see. We'll see, won't we? Very soon.
It's hard to know that sort of stuff. Some things, it's like, you know, you could have 10 different people look at a thing and be like, yeah, that's probably fine. But maybe if those 10 people were included in a data sample size of 100 and 90 people thought it's trash, but you somehow got the RNG of getting 10 people that thought it was okay, and then you'd have a very bad data set and you'd send it through, and I'm sure that could happen. There's like scenarios where there are things they maybe thought would be good, and then turns out most people hate it, right?
Yeah.
I think some things are kind of hard to judge, maybe.
Mm-hmm. What is your favorite mechanic in Path of Exile to play?
Like League mechanic?
Well, any of the past leagues of things that they added. It could be a side one or, yeah.
My favorite, personally, was Synthesis, which is like, at the time, everybody hated Synthesis. I still think it's weird because I see a lot of people being like, yeah, bring back Synthesis. We loved it. It was such a cool thing. But at the time, when Synthesis was going on, everyone hated it. Not everyone, but the most people hated the... There was definitely some clunkiness, only being able to store 10 memories, only having the PUDB to go to try to figure out what synthesis mods even exist. There were problems with it. And I probably agree with a lot of those things being like, yeah, that probably wasn't the best. But even with those problems, I still thought the extra little endgame system of building your little maze of rooms and the fading, like having to race through a zone to get away from the fading darkness of the memory, forgetting it, like that concept, that I don't know, the puzzle piece type of aspect to it, I thought that was really kind of one of their more unique, cool concepts they've had for a league for league content. And then the mechanism of combining items to create really cool items, I'm kind of a nerdier PoE player where I liked delving into the PoEDB wiki and looking up all the different possibilities and figuring out what you needed to do to make those items. Stuff like that I liked, where probably the vast majority of players could care less and they're like, this is super obscure and this is stupid, right? So I could see that being a mechanic that not a lot of people like, but I think that's actually, if I was going to pick a mechanic, I think that'd be one of my favorites.
Well, they're kind of bringing that
in
in with the combiner right now that they put in.
Yeah, the recombinator does share some similarities.
Mm-hmm.
I think the recombinator is going to be absolutely busted in terms of what you can recreate with it. We'll see how much randomness that the devs chose to put into that thing, whether or not, like, oh, if you recombinate, it'll add in stun and block recovery, or oh, if you recombinate, it's going to get rid of 50% of the good mods you wanted, or how much control you can have over that thing. Like, if you can use meta mods like prefixes can't be changed on a 3 perfect prefix base, and then you do recombinate it with an item that has just 2 good suffixes and suffixes can't be changed, how does that interaction occur? Stuff like that, I'll be curious to find out what interactions are with meta mods and various crafting scenarios. And one specific thing I noticed that I thought was even cooler, which I don't know if a lot of people read through all the challenges, but there's a challenge for combining a corrupted item with a synthesized item, which means there's a way to craft on corrupted items, which I think has some unique potential in scenarios where you could take 100 Crusader base helmets, right, and just corrupt them and try to get a +1 power charge on a Crusader base. And then you could craft a +1 power charge Crusader base helmet. If you combine those two helmets and it chooses the corrupted base to give you +1 power charge, does it bring over the other power charge? Is that an easy way to get a +2 power charge helmet? Is that a feasible thing now? Stuff like that I think are cool interactions that are like possibilities for the new mechanic that I think could be cool. So I don't know, we'll see what that stuff is like.
Yeah, some insane possibilities for sure. I was thinking more along the lines of making the insane claws for the 12-link claw drain thing. You have 3 on the other one, you have 3 on the other one, you go, please, at least give me 4 of those mods, or 5 of those mods. That's what I was going to do.
I think that's definitely a significant... I think that and weapon crafting in general, like getting, like, for example, triple T1 Fizz type of thing, if it has any decent weighting for putting 3 of the I don't know, the good prefixes together, depending on how that stuff's weighted out, it's gonna make that sort of craft so insanely like more plausible and feasible. I don't know. We'll see. It all depends how much RNG they decide to give the mechanic and how much control we have over it. Which people will do experiments, and I'm sure 1 week into the league we will know a lot of significant abuse cases.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm excited about that. But that was when they were showing that, I'm like, oh, it's kind of like the synthesis thing that kind of brought it back-ish.
Yeah, a little bit. Hopefully, in just a less obscure, more controllable type of thing.
Yeah, I also really like the idea of that mini game with the maze and stuff. I like complicated systems as well. That's why I play the game. That's why I look through the build guide. So I think we enjoy the similar things.
Yeah, I can see that for sure.
Let's see here. What mechanic do you hate the most?
What league mechanic I hate the most? Oh, that's a hard one because there are actually multiple mechanics that I don't like. Um, so I have okay, one thing that probably this isn't going to be necessarily the most hated mechanic, but it's going to be the one I have the most mixed emotions about, which is Harvest. Harvest initially I loved. You could have so much control over what crafts you were getting. You just buy seeds, you'd plant a bunch of the fire seeds if you're trying to get fire crafts, yada yada yada. It was insanely overpowered, right? You could create super custom gear, but you had the control to be able to farm those crafts. What Harvest has become now is you go to TFT to get the one craft you need, and you have to go to TFT. If you're going to craft a good item, there's pretty much very little scenarios where you're not going to TFT to get an augment fire or a reforge keep suffix or whatever these various crafts are. You're required to go to TFT. And the thing I hate about it is Harvest, I can't skip in good conscience because I know that mechanic is busted valuable. I have to go in there because if I get something like a reforge keep suffix, I know that's a fairly somewhat common outcome and it'll sell for 1x on TFT, right? There will be things like that where I am forced to engage with this mechanic because of how strong it is. Even in its nerf state, it's that strong. And there's a lot of times where I don't like interrupting what I'm doing to go do harvest and look at these crafts and make sure I store my crafts and okay, I have to go get rid of these other crafts now. There's like it completely removes you from I'm having fun mapping to I have to micromanage this thing now because of how strong it is. And then the other thing, this is kind of just a small thing that it's in other league mechanics. I think it's in Betrayal and some other things. It's you've finished the fight, but there are still random things doing damage to you, and you're going to click on a text box to read some crap while there's still these things lingering to do damage to you, and you die in it, and it's one of the most tilty ways to die, because it's like, I killed all the monsters. Do we really have to have a death effect that goes on for
I don't know what
5
their obsession with, like, I'm okay with the volatiles in their current state. Okay, fair enough. Even
yeah, those are fine.
The bears, I think, were fine, except for sometimes it's some dicey situation with increased area of effect. Maybe they shouldn't have scaled that as much to where they're like the whole screen.
Crazy.
If you're like in an indoor map and there's just nowhere to go. But outside of that, okay, I'm okay with that. Then adding it all over the place and it's just colors when the game is so color bloated.
Yeah, it's like, well, Harvest, for example, they're like, you just did a yellow harvester, right? And there's like all these yellow dead plants, but there's still like these yellow things springing up, or I guess still like lingering dot damage or something. And like, I didn't even know that was a thing on the ground. It looks the same as everything else of the dead insects, but it's actually something that's lingering damage.
Yeah, I think there's a purple one too, right? For the purple
Yeah.
seeds.
And
Yeah.
and it's for me, it's specifically the instance where it's like, okay, I'm clicking on something that blocks my screen to read the thing, and now the health and mana bar that are all the way over here that I'm not looking at, and my peripheral vision is going down, and I am dying, and I can't see it because I'm reading text, right? Center screen.
Yeah. I mean, you haven't figured out how to read that text and read your chat and read your HP.
Oh, okay, well, to be fair, and this is probably my own fault, I actually put my chat text bar over my health bar, which is admittedly a stupid thing to do in terms of if I want to see what my health bar is at, and I've definitely died to it because I can't really see my health bar that well, but I just haven't found a better spot on the screen. No, actually, the Streamlabs OBS chat thing I use defaults to that location, and I've tried decently hard to try to make it go to a different spot on the screen, and I haven't been able to figure out a good way to move that around. And that's something I should just do more research about instead of probably a different chat stream thing, but I just have been too lazy to, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's probably my own fault. I can't blame the game for my own laziness there.
So what sort of what software are you using? You said Streamlabs OBS. What do you use to edit videos and stuff?
I use Streamlab OBS for streaming, and then for editing my videos, I use a free software called Resolve, which generally works pretty good. I
DaVinci
found.
Resolve? That one?
Yeah, DaVinci Resolve.
Yeah, that's what I'm using as well.
And to me, I haven't had any issues with it. It's always had, if I've tried to look up like, oh, if I wanted to try to do something different with my editing, I'll Google DaVinci Resolve this, and it'll have the tool in the program for me to use. And so I was like, seems like it does most of the things I will need it to do.
Mm-hmm. And what do you use for like donation pop-ups and stuff like that?
I think I just do that through Streamlab OBS alerts and stuff. We're all set like I did it a while ago, and I probably should update it and make it better, but pretty much just be like, oh, if people donate bits, it'll play this alert message or whatever, or this little like GIF or yada yada yada.
Mm-hmm. Did you make your own logo and graphics and all that stuff, or did you pay someone to do it? Or?
I'm not really an artist. I think initially when I started, there was one guy who helped me make a couple little things at the below my Twitch stream that will say like Twitch bio or YouTube or stuff like that. That they did a little bit of artwork, and I was like, thanks, dude. That helped me out a lot because I'm not an artistic person. I'm not good at that stuff, and I think he just took a few minutes, threw together something that looked clean and nice, and I was definitely really grateful to him for doing that. But no, I mean, you'll see my Twitch bio picture and my YouTube bio pictures like my dog and my PoE character from who knows how many years ago, and I just took a picture of the character in game or whatever. Like, I definitely haven't done a very good job doing any sort of like branding work, which is something I could probably improve on, right?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I'm like you as well. I think if techie folks, there's a different type of techie. You know, they're all the same, right? All the IT jobs, but there's actually a UI interface designer job and a graphics designer person, and those people are different from
Yeah,
us.
I got a talent set that I do not have. That
exactly. So even with that, even do you find thumbnails difficult to make? Like that
I think I've gotten better at thumbnails. I could be wrong. I've been trying to do a decent job at like always including like a nice background image and then like a foreground image and then like some sort of text that's related that pops for the video I'm making or something. I don't know if I'm doing a good job or not. I think I've improved on my thumbnails, but I'm sure over time I'll start to like learn stuff that works better because that's been the case for me. Like initially I would just post the video and the thumbnail would be whatever YouTube selects and whatever portion of the video, like, oh, it decided me in this random spot doing nothing was an important part of the video, and the YouTube would say, that's your thumbnail now, right? And since then I've been like, okay, I'll try to make a thumbnail, and I think I've improved on, I don't know, as I've made more thumbnails, I've gotten faster at it, gotten some level of process down. I don't think I'm necessarily good at it or anything, but I think I do decent or better than just nothing.
Yeah, I think it was Voice Critical Charlie. You know who he is? He, for the longest time, that was his thumbnails. He recorded a video and then he selected one of the 4 presets and done.
Does he still do? I feel like when I look at his videos, a lot of times they are just like him in his white t-shirt.
Yeah, classic. I don't know if he still does it for most of them or is that because like I know he is like an editor and he has like a team around him now.
They might have upped his thumbnail game
a little bit. I think it's him sitting there in the t-shirt and they have like a picture of what he's going to talk about now. You know, some big improvements or something. But I mean, if it works, it's sometimes it's not about that, right? If you have a brand and then people will come there for you. So I mean, that's cool too. But
at that point, you've made it. If they're coming there for just a picture of you on the thumbnail, you've done well, I think.
Yeah, definitely. That's the dream, to get to that point where you're the thumbnail.
Maybe someday.
Okay, let's see here. What else should we talk about?
Do you have any league goals? You got any of those stuff you have
No.
going into this league? You don't have any?
Make money, get views.
Make money, get
I'm
views.
playing
And
YouTube, baby. I don't care about the game
you're
anymore.
playing the
I
game.
mean,
Okay,
yeah,
fair
that
enough.
we're playing YouTube at this point, not the game so much. I mean, yeah, I'm gonna play a strong build that I know will crush things. Yeah, I'm gonna make guides that people could follow and crush things, and that seems like a good strategy, and that's what I'm playing. This
For
time, I
me,
might go full sellout, and I might look up all the meta builds, and I'll play each of the meta builds and make one video per meta build for the people who like my videos specifically on the meta builds. I might do that. I think I'm gonna get burnt out
really
before
bad
that.
strategy just because how many people are like, okay, I want to play the best build. I'm gonna look up that build and look all the videos on that build or whatever, right? Um,
Yeah.
for me, I mean, maybe I'd be better at YouTube if I had that philosophy.
I
I'm
usually
like,
don't do that. I usually am like, what is no one playing that's busted and no one knows about it? That's what I usually try to find. And I think a lot of times that I found it, but that's not a good thing to be known for, I think, because you never know what changes GGG is going to make. And it
yeah,
requires a huge amount of effort to find those obscure things. And the more people that make
sure.
content, the more people, the bigger the game gets, the smaller the holes are for those little things. It's already gotten way more difficult from when I started 2 years ago. There's a lot of really, really strong newer content creators that are coming up. And so the competition there. So
It's tough competition.
yeah.
My process this league was I struggled in POB for multiple days where I just kept making builds that I was like, I don't think this is gonna be good enough, or it had one problem or another, and eventually I came back to good old righteous fire. And I looked at it for a while and I'm like, man, there's a lot of hype around Inquisitor. I can't play Inquisitor. I have to be off meta. I have to be a special snowflake. And then I looked at some other builds and I looked at Trickster at 0.2%. I'm like, we're gonna do it. We're gonna friggin' show everybody that Trickster can do it. And either I'm gonna go up in flames because Trickster's actually hot garbage, or maybe some of the ideas I have are maybe good enough that I'll make a really cool build. But like the problem with experimentation is there's a good chance it all goes real south, but the reward is on the 80% of the builds that go south, 20% of them, like, they work out and they're really cool or something, right? So, I'm gonna
Yeah.
try it.
Yeah, and I tried a lot of that stuff, but when the 3.15 hit,
Oh, Giga Nerfs.
I tried 15 builds and threw away 13 of them. And I'm like, well, this is a really good strategy if I want to grow on YouTube. Wow, just amazing strategy. Right?
Oh,
So I like
so much
just didn't
content,
produce
so much time invested just to throw it
I
all away.
yeah, and I just didn't make any videos on those like 13 other builds. Well, I made one video on one of them that no one wants to watch it because I have to mark it as a failed build because in good conscience I can't recommend people playing it.
Yeah.
So
The build you're marking as a failed build is not gonna, it's not gonna do well. Some people will get a kick out of your failure, right? But largely it's not going to be a successful video compared to where you've been like can say, "Oh, this is a really good build, check it out," type of thing. If it actually is,
yeah.
and I definitely know that feeling because I've made quite a few bad builds where I'm just like, "Well, this kind of sucks." Do I make a video about how it sucks and how I'm stupid and I'm not a good build maker, or do I just pretend it didn't happen and throw away my time? Right?
Yeah, I mean, there's learning things. I think I need to get better at storytelling because then you could turn, if you're really good at storytelling, then you could turn a bad thing about what I learned. And I think that's important, or that's one of the ways I started looking at content differently from before, is it doesn't matter if it's bad, it's a video. If it's a good, it's a video. Either way, it's a video. And you got to think about how to spin. Okay,
Making it
this
interesting,
completely didn't work,
entertaining.
but here's something interesting. Yeah, if you can do that, then you never waste your time. So I've rethought and come to that conclusion. One of the
I think that's
most
a good conclusion. I don't know if I'm quite good enough at storytelling to make that work.
well, I'm working on it. It's a work in progress, right? It
I
might
wasn't
be a
saying you're
2-year
not good enough.
journey.
I was saying I don't think I myself am good enough.
Well, I don't think so. I am either. It's a 2-year goal or whatever year goal, and
Yeah, okay,
read
that makes
books on storytelling and try different things out and see, and then eventually you get there. I mean, no skills. You don't just. I
you
mean,
don't
yeah,
start
you
out
might
being a winner.
exactly. You don't start a freaking okay, you load up the game, you know nothing about it. Now you're a god player? I don't think so. That's not how it usually works, right? There's a learning aspect to it, and it's about the journey, man. Document the journey. That's the story in itself.
Journey before destination. Have you read any Brandon Sanderson? Or am I quoting something you don't know? Okay, never mind. Forget the reference.
I don't read very often. I just started reading a couple books. So I have like a couple on jokes and storytelling. So I'm curious on the joke ones if I've come to most of the conclusions that are going to be in the book that I'm going to read. And then one of the ones that I'm reading right now is Atomic Habits. I'm trying to get rid of my bad habits. I have too many bad habits.
I probably have a decent amount of bad habits I need to get better at, but we'll see how if I can pick out what those habits are. You have to be able to identify them first before you can even stop them, right?
Yeah, that's one of the steps. But it's interesting about if you want to add a new habit, then you take your other habits and then you do habit stacking. You squeeze them in between your other habits, or you do it right after, and it makes it much easier to be consistent with. So there's a lot of cool stuff like that in the book that I think is pretty helpful. So I just started trying to read again several books instead of just watching random videos on the internet where random people tell their opinion who may or may not have done anything.
Power to you. I think I was good at reading in like high school and partly in college, but I think I did good reading. I had a decent vocabulary going, and then I stopped reading, started watching more YouTube, and the vocabulary just tanked, right?
Yeah, I mostly read online stuff, so it's kind of trying to force myself to do that and unplug to a certain extent. And what do people who aren't online think about things? I find that interesting. Personal growth goals. Yeah, personal growth goals. But like I said, even for the storytelling, like I think I'm a decent storyteller, but probably like 6 out of 10. But to make it on YouTube, I want to be like a 9 out of 10, right? So that's probably a couple year journey to work on that.
Yeah, you definitely have to be good at it to be successful with it for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, I believe in you, man. I think you've already grown so much in terms of just your editing alone, just the stuff you've been doing this league. I know you've been saying you've been putting a lot of time into it, and you're not sure you're seeing the results of it, but I think over time, for sure, you'll get more regular, consistent viewers because of it. I know I thought, oh, these videos are a lot better, way better than you did before. Your other videos were solid, but these ones are a lot more entertaining, having different, edits and stuff come in, really communicate the words you're saying type of thing. Mm-hmm. So I'm just one person. I probably just have one opinion. Who knows if everybody else agrees with that? But
yeah,
well, I think you're definitely improving for sure.
Yeah, I definitely improved everyone. Like I kind of talked about this in some of the other interviews, but when I started, I had basically a loaf of bread that I cut into chunks, and then we threw away 90% of the loaf of bread because that's how much we had to cut out to make the video. And it took quite a bit of time to do that and editing and stuff. So now it's not so bad. Now, last cycle, what I worked on, I try to pick like one thing to work on every cycle. Last cycle, what I worked on was sitting down and talking in long form sentences or paragraphs or whatever, and like doing one take for a good chunk of the video, like 2-3 minutes. So I think I've improved on that quite a bit. And now what I'm working on quite a bit is
give you a lot of time, I would think.
Yeah, now I'm working, so I'm still trying to improve on that, but I think I'm getting better at that. Definitely like noticeably better at that. And now I'm trying to talk with my hands more, so there's like movement stuff because that's good. And then I'm trying to like make eye contact to the camera, which is awkward, and it's like it's up here.
Yeah,
which is in a weird spot for me.
You're looking at this thing, which is like the thing you're showing.
Yeah.
But in order to actually communicate to the viewer, like I've probably been really bad at this whole interview. I'm not even good at that. Is like looking at the camera.
Yeah, but that in itself, if I ever want to go full screen and you're kind of looking around, or if you just look at a lot of the other Path of Exile people and just really just watch their eyes and where they go, and we're looking all over the place because we ain't public speakers. We have no formal video training, and we're just really passionate about the game. We want to tell you about it, and then we're like, oh, well, this one time I fired a mirror. You know what I mean? Like looking all over the place. So trying to make not as many movements, like talk with your hands, do like 1, 2, 3 things. And then the other thing is I'm trying to do stuff with jokes in mind, so I can leave space for jokes to make jokes. And I'm trying to, for my beginning part, try to like write like that, to where it's like every 10 seconds joke to get to higher retention. Will it pay off? I don't know. Maybe not in this niche, because someone's going to just take my POB and then they're going to copy it and then they're going to go message me why there's no rings available with 50 fire res. Okay? That's what's going to happen. Let's be real.
Have more faith, man. Have more faith. Well, I don't know. I think you'll see some good results. And as for the 50 fire res ring guy, that guy is always going to be there. I don't think. Yeah. I think there's always going to be new players coming into the game that they don't quite understand or realize, oh, I can get this somewhere else. They think they have to copy everything one for one, and that's just new player perspective. You don't quite understand the game as much. You're really just like trying to, okay, this guy said this will work. It's budget friendly. Well, I'm gonna just do everything he did, and then But it's just, I think it's just a learning curve, and every new player's got to learn that. And unfortunately or fortunately, they'll ask the question, and then hopefully, even though they are asking a stupid question, you can still be gracious and hopefully give them a good answer that they'll say, okay, that guy was really nice to me, he gave me a good answer. But maybe if you answer that question, then they'll come back with other stupid questions. So it's a little risk reward, right?
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Sometimes it's or I get triggered and go on a rant, and that's pretty darn entertaining. And then I get clipped out of content, so everyone knows I'm a jerk. Hopefully not. I try to be helpful and stuff like that.
Yeah, for sure.
But at some point, you got to have your own agency to look some stuff up, and sometimes people use this as a crutch. I think where they could have got the information. It's a confidence thing too, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Like they could have Googled it and probably looked it up. Like why do I need to know every stat thing? Sometimes that happens. So this is good. I'm getting a lot of things off my chest. I'm feeling better. How are you?
It's like a therapy session.
That's kind of a soft therapy.
If content creation doesn't work out for me, maybe I could be a therapist.
Yeah,
Probably not. I don't think I have the patience. I'm not a very good people person, but
yeah.
I can relate to you because it's PoE content creation. I kind of understand that sort of thing. If it's somebody else telling me about how, I don't know, their dog doesn't love them as much as it used to, I'd be like, I don't know how to relate to you at all. I don't understand. I don't have the social skills.
So all your pets love you the same amount at all times? Is that what we're learning?
Something like that. It's just like, I mean, that's probably just a made-up problem, but the idea is something that there's a lot of things that I'm not going to understand. PoE I can relate to, whereas most, probably more normal things I am going to have a lot harder time relating to, and definitely wouldn't be as good as empathizing in those scenarios, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of getting a bit late, and my wife was asking me earlier how much longer.
She signaled. She turned off all the lights on you quite a while ago. If you didn't notice that, I noticed that. I was just waiting.
I'll probably have to go to like closing or something here.
Yeah. Let's wrap it up. I mean, I appreciate any time. Obviously, you're very busy. I'm very happy that we had to reschedule like a billion times. Kids, huh?
Sorry about that. I don't have a great amount of control over my free schedule based on, I mean, we've gotten the kids to some level of, okay, they usually do this. They usually take a nap here, or they usually want food at this time, and we've gotten them somewhat scheduled, but even then, it's still very hard to control, and even with their controlled schedule, it's really hard to find an hour to 2 hour space where I'm like, okay, I can dedicate this thing type of thing. So
yeah. Well, I appreciate it. Hopefully all the viewers appreciated it. This was Captain Lance, and you want to shout out where can people find you?
You can find me at Captain Lance on YouTube or CaptainLance9 on Twitch. Thanks for
go. Bye, guys.
See you later.